Good evening, Tulane families. We are so glad that you've joined us tonight for our webinar tonight that is about the Freeman School of Business Study Abroad and Exchange Program. So we're happy to bring you this information. We do this every fall, and we will have other webinars about study abroad. And so we wanted you to be aware that this is focused on the programs within the business school. We just held a presentation in Family Weekend on the programs that are governed by the Newcomb Tulane College Office of Study Abroad and Exchange, and that is already up on the Family Programs website in the archive. So if you want to know about those, you've got that other resource. So we're going to go to the next slide, and I'll just tell you about who you'll meet this evening. So our presenter is Mary Hicks, who's the director of the Freeman Study Abroad and Exchange Program. I'll moderate the questions at the end, so she'll take over from now and present all the content, and then I'll rejoin you when we do the Q&A. And then we also have one of Mary's colleagues, Aaron Forbes, who's the senior program coordinator in their office, and he's also here in the background assisting us. So at this point, I'll go ahead and turn things over to Mary, and I'll join you at the Q&A. Thank you.
Thanks, Penny. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to be able to talk to you tonight and give you a little bit of an agenda of what we're going to do. We're going to go over some of the basics about study abroad. We're going to then delve into some of the specific program information, and then we're going to go over lots of logistics. And then we'll have our Q&A. I do have quite a few slides, so I'm going to try to move through these as quickly as I can. And hopefully by getting a copy of the slides, you can go over this at your leisure later. So let's talk about some of the basics. It's important to remember at Tulane that we have two study abroad offices. The Freeman Abroad is our office. We service only business majors. We also have incoming exchange students. The NTC Office of Study Abroad handles all undergraduate majors at Tulane. And this, Venn diagram that shows the space in between can be our business students who want to complete non-business requirements, or they might have specific goals with regard to location. Our Freeman Abroad staff, we are small but mighty. I'm the director of the office. Miss Michelle Falgu is our senior executive secretary. Aaron Forbes is our senior program coordinator, handling primarily outbound students. And Lauren Bix is our senior program coordinator, handling primarily inbound students. It's important, I think, sometimes to remember who we are and what our role is. We are definitely here as a resource for students before, during, and after their study abroad experience. We generally facilitate intercultural education with students. We assist them throughout the application process, and we're part of a robust on-campus support system. We are not immigration or visa advisors. It's very important that students understand. We also do not function as travel agents. We do have a travel agency that Tulane employs for that. And we are not on site with students. So we send students on exchange programs, but we're not in country with students. Now, as family members, it's important for our students to be able to lean on you as a resource for them before, during, and after study abroad. And this can involve financial, emotional, logistical support, so many different facets to what our students need help with. In general, our family members are able to assist students with certain needs during the application process, and they can be part of their support network. What family members generally are not going to be able to do is to fix all of their problems, right? The students are going to have to learn how to work through some of their own problems, and they're going to need to handle their own organizational needs directly. And empowering them to do that is a very important part of this process. I do also like to bring up that in terms of communicating with students, our role is to communicate and to work directly with students. It is very important that the students are managing their own information, They're handling their application process. We want them to be as independent as possible. We also have to be careful to remember that their privacy is protected under the FERPA, their FERPA rights. FERPA is the Family Educational Right to Privacy Act, and only a student can waive their FERPA rights. So we sometimes can't talk with family members about students' specific information unless the student has waived those rights, or if the student is in the meeting with the family members. So it's really important for students and family members to understand that those privacy rights are protected and they're very important. We do also ask that students can include family members in appointments, but that the student is present. We generally don't meet with family members without students unless it's a special circumstance. And if you do call on behalf of your student, please make sure that you provide their full name so that we can have their information when we're talking with you, and we can look up and see if they've waived their FERPA rights and all kinds of other information. When you're preparing your student, we do ask you to work with them on reflecting, and also maybe you can reflect on what it was like for you to go through this time in your life. When was it that you felt truly like you were an adult? You know, you're practicing your adulting. Um, and, do you feel like your student is an adult yet? We do find that your relationship is often changing with your student at this point in their life. It's probably grown a little bit since that high school period. And this is that next phase where they're negotiating, becoming an adult, having larger conversations, moving not only out of the nest, but to another country. So we're working on preparing them, and we're asking for family support to help prepare them. It's also important to recognize, students' expectations, that this is more than a vacation. Study abroad is an experience it's an opportunity for students to experience exponential personal and academic growth. Um, in general, students who study abroad have increased hireability, adaptability, and intercultural communication skills. But it can also be a very exciting, scary, fun, depressing, confusing, amazing, overwhelming experience. And a lot of times, especially when students first arrive at their study abroad destination, they can really feel very, very conflicting emotions. And so families are an important part of that student support network. And getting through that first phase of arriving is an important part of that. One way that we can empower our students is to embrace the growth mindset. This idea that you're in a period of growth and you really want to use these tough experiences as that opportunity to grow, to learn from the challenges rather than to have a fixed mindset and to kind of shut down when things get tough, to encourage your student to really embrace this process, receive feedback, and grow and try new things. One concrete way of doing that is to use the language of the word yet. We, can help students frame their experiences by, using something like the word yet. I don't know how to do this in the foreign language. Well, no, you don't know how to do that yet, but you can learn. And so it encourages them to solve their own problems, to work through that problem, gives them space to do it, empowers them to do it on their own, and reminds them that these pitfalls, they're not permanent. They're growing and changing. And having family support students through that process is very important. So your role is encouraging that growth mindset, being part of their Calgary, right? You're in the trenches with them. You're not in front of them. You're not leading them, you're with them on the battlefield, right? You're a source of empowerment. You are parenting them, but it's a different parenting process. Our role is we're advising, we do provide emotional support for students and intercultural coaching, as well as academic and program guidance. And all of that works together to provide a really robust support network for our students, which they really do need at this time period. It's a big deal to study abroad, and it's a lot to take in and to process. Again, we want to continue to manage students' expectations. Um, we want them to start really thinking about what are their academic, professional, and personal goals. When they're setting goals before they study abroad and they're thinking about these things that they want to get out of the experience, they're going to get more out of the experience. This is not just travel. It's not just social media, like Instagrammable moments, and they're not missing out on things, right? That whole FOMO thing that we have now with the sort of this broad what flood of social media, and people think that their study abroad experience has to look a certain way, is really not what it's about. It's about living in another culture. It's about optimizing that exchange and that cultural immersion experience. Traveling every weekend is nice, but it's not necessarily living in the culture that you're visiting. And so we really do try to encourage students to take advantage of this experience for the full cultural immersion, and that they might be going on their own. They might be going with a smaller group of Tulane students. They might not necessarily be going with a large group of students. They're going to have more cultural immersion if they're not there with a lot of other students that they already know. Again, some of the powerful effects that study abroad has on students can be that increased hireability. The networking opportunities are amazing, especially on these exchange programs where they're studying abroad with business students from around the world. I've seen students, start up businesses as a result of contacts that they made on some of these programs. I've seen them get internships or job offers, but they also gain international perspectives, not only on their life, but also on their actual studies. We've seen students do, engage in research projects as a result of studies that they did while they were abroad. They also develop a higher sense of adaptability, increased independence, which then empowers them to do more, and those strengthened intercultural competencies. These are aspects of life that students take into their future. A lot of times they don't even feel the effects of that until years after they have this kind of an experience. So it's really important for families to be able to support the fact that what they're going through is part of this whole growth experience. Now let's talk a little bit about the Freeman programs. All of the Freeman programs are direct enroll exchange programs. We have a curated list of direct partnerships with top business schools around the world. Students are not only Tulane students, but they become students at the partner institution, and they maintain their status as Tulane students. Because they enroll directly with the partner, they are required to participate in the host institution's practices, such as their enrollment, their academic calendar, the student organizations that they can avail themselves of, support services, and of course, the housing that may or may not be offered by the host institution. We'll talk more about housing in a subsequent slide. But basically, the Freeman programs are exchange, and so that also means that we're receiving international exchange students from all of these partner institutions. This semester, we have 117 students from 20 countries. They really do provide this kind of like additional international element to Freeman classes here on campus, providing that opportunity not only for social interaction, but also that academic interaction for our students in their classes. It really is a powerful experience that our students can have. In general, the Freeman programs provide lots of opportunities. We have 12 partners in Asia, 26 partners in Europe, one partner in the Middle East. We're working on that one. 5 partners in Australia, 7 partners in the Americas, 12 to 14 summer programs in 25 countries. So we have a lot of opportunities, and we like for students to think about going to different places rather than all trying to go to the same places. Some of our partner examples and highlights. So our largest program, and the program that you'll hear most about, is the ICADE Business School in Madrid, Spain. That's the one where we send the largest number of students in the fall semester. But we also partner with Copenhagen Business School in Denmark, ESSEC Business School. These are some of them top 20, top 30 business schools in the world. Vienna University of Economics and Business in Austria, the National University of Singapore, which is the #1 business school in all of Asia, Curtin University in Perth, Australia, Universidad de los Andes in Bogota, Colombia, and lots of great, exciting programs that offer, the thing that our students also enjoy on these programs is being able to take business electives in classes that they can't take at Tulane. So specific areas of study or just exciting classes that professors have developed at some of these top-notch business schools. It really is a great opportunity for students to expand their business acumen, their knowledge about various aspects of business. Our structures are important to understand. So our semester abroad programs are basic exchange. So they pay their Tulane tuition and fees. That way their financial aid and scholarships flow like they normally do. The additional expenses are paid directly, such as housing, flights, etc. Freeman does one general or common application where students then list out their 5 top choices of our partner institutions in order of preference. We have a placement process that takes place after that February 5th deadline. So it's not a rolling application. All applications are reviewed at the same time. And a $500 commitment deposit is required at the time of commitment. It's not an application fee, it's a commitment deposit. We want to make sure that our students are fully committed when we're sending their information to the partner institutions. For the summer programs, primarily these are offered by our partners. And so students pay a program fee that includes their Tulane tuition, their insurance, and other aspects that are included or not included in the program. It's different every program. Some additional expenses are paid directly. In general, students apply directly to their program of interest, and it's a rolling deadline. So it's not the placement process that we do for the fall programs. We do also require that commitment deposit for the summer programs. We have usually around 14 programs. We receive updates from our partners, and then we start updating our website with that information as we receive it. Most of them send out the information in December and January. So a lot of those are still showing 2025 information. We'll be updating with 2026 information as that information comes available. In general, students, it depends on the program. They can get anywhere from 3 to 12 credits. The program format is varied and the academic focus is varied. So there are a lot of summer options. Not a lot of business students take advantage of these because they're often working internships, but they are out there. I also wanted to announce this year that we have some exciting new offerings from Freeman faculty on summer study abroad programs that are really, really neat. The first one that I'll mention is the Global Industry Immersion Program. This is for students in the sports management, hospitality, or real estate finance certificate programs. It'll be in Barcelona in 2026 in May. This is open to only Freeman students, and it involves company visits and experiential learning. It's really an exciting program where students are really focusing on those 3 areas of study. There is also a program run through the Office of Study Abroad, so the NTC Office of Study Abroad, and that's the Global Entrepreneurial Ecosystems Program. It is run by our management professor, Alyssa Billfield, And it encompasses not only entrepreneurial and sustainable business practices education, but also a service learning component so students can get their service learning done. And it's in Singapore and in Indonesia in May and June, from May 22nd to June 4th. And that's open to Freeman and non-Freeman students. So it sounds like a great program. We're very excited that Professor Billfield is offering that. And then the Summer in Paris program, Professor Chris Otten is teaching Legal Studies 3010 for the second time next summer. Students take 2 classes on that program, and it is basically a month long. So it's generally geared towards students who are entering their sophomore year, or maybe aren't done with their 3010s yet, and they don't want to do a full semester program. But it's a great opportunity for students. These are all links to the programs. So when you get this presentation, you'll be able to click on those links for the programs. All right, so I'd like to talk about the difference between the Freeman and OSA offices and programs in order to give families an understanding of the two offices and the two different types of programs. Our office handles the Freeman programs. Those are all exchange programs. They're going to be much more immersive. All of our business courses are vetted, and students are guaranteed credit transfer into their BSM degree plan. So it's a little easier for them to get business credits on these programs. We partner with top business schools around the world, but because these are exchange programs, we don't have unlimited numbers to send students to whatever they want to do. We have limited spots at each institution. And so because we have a lot of students applying to study abroad in the fall, sometimes those programs can be a little on the competitive side. That's why when students apply, they fill out one application and they list those 5 schools in order of preference. That way, if we can't send them to their top choice, we can provide alternative options for them. The NTC Office of Study Abroad, OSA, is the larger study abroad office that services all undergraduate students. They have like 200 programs in their portfolio. Generally, those programs are going to be provider or hybrid programs. That's where you see those companies like CIEE, CEA Kappa, CET, I call it alphabet soup, that are American companies that provide study abroad opportunities in lots of different places. In general, those are catering to American students. They are going to be a little less immersive than the Freeman programs, but they have more spots on them. So they're less competitive than the Freeman programs. Starting in 2026, the Office of Study Abroad will start to limit the number of programs, spots available on certain programs to 75 students. So there'll still be plenty of spaces available, but there's a chance that not everybody will be able to go to programs in Spain, particularly. So it is important for students to start thinking about options outside of Spain. We have kind of an excess of students all wanting to go to the same places. And in general, we're in the business of providing students with opportunities for that cultural immersion. And so we want them to study abroad in more than one location. Some programs through OSA are pre-approved by the business school. So we call those Freeman-approved OSA programs. There is less guarantee of business credits, although if they go on those programs, it's a little easier. All the credits transfer on, both of these formats. All the credits transfer from abroad and count towards students' general graduation requirements, but the business school has certain restrictions. And so we work with students to try to maximize their business elective credits. But it's a little harder on the OSA programs. For the OSA application, students apply for one program and they list a backup. So it's important for them to have decided which program they want to apply for before they click apply now. Whereas with Freeman, they click apply now and then they start working on which programs they're interested in. So it's a little bit different in like when a student would start an application. In order to find the information on the Freeman approved OSA programs, students can go to our website, and I'm going to click on this link. But basically, Freeman students can go on non-Freeman programs. We want to encourage them to go to our website and look at their options in order to figure out what's the best option for them. So here's our website. We went straight to this semester abroad brochure page. We're going to go to the non-Freeman study abroad options, and here's an explanation. Here's the list of the programs that are Freeman approved OSA programs. And then we have a spreadsheet with a list of pre-approved courses on those particular programs. If students do these programs, one of these, they can transfer in up to a full semester of business credits, similar to the Freeman Abroad programs in our portfolio. Whether or not they can get into those business classes is not something that our office can control. We don't run these programs, but we are able to pre-approve a decent number of business credits in order for students to have more options in terms of business. We do have a link here talking about those caps, those programs that are going to they expect to reach the limit of 75 students, or they already have limits on the programs. And there's lots of information here on their website about what this means and what students can expect from those caps. So we encourage students that if they're applying for one of the programs that's expected to cap, that they should read that information. If a student wants to go on a program outside of the Freeman list and outside of this Freeman approved OSA programs, they have other choices. They can do OSA programs that are not Freeman approved, in which case they can transfer in up to 6 business elective credits. Or if they decide to separate from the university and do a leave of absence, they still need to apply through the NTC Office of Study Abroad. And if they do get approval, pre-approval, they can transfer in up to 6 general business elective credits. But it just gets a little harder once they start going outside of our pre-approved lists to get those business credits. So it's important for students to sort of weigh their options and think about what is important to them. So again, students can go on these Freeman approved OSA programs. We're going to want to talk to them about their options, and we're going to help them with transferring the business credits. In general, Freeman Abroad program benefits are that they can take business classes not available at Tulane. They can transfer in 12 to 18 business credits. They take classes taught in English. Many of our partners do also allow students to study in the local language. So if a student has a high level of language, they can take business classes taught in French or Spanish. They do maintain their Tulane status, and that allows them to use their financial aid and scholarships like they normally do. We also provide additional Tulane support, the usual things, including our Crisis 24 travel services, advising, and such. It's important to also recognize what Tulane does not do. We do not apply for housing on behalf of students. We do not enroll the students in their classes at the host institution. We cannot alter foreign transcripts where the students earn their grades abroad. We don't apply for student visas on behalf of students, and we cannot intervene with a foreign country or a partner institution's policies and/or procedures. So it's really important that the students are taking ownership of those parts of their study abroad process. Let's go over some logistics. When do students usually go abroad with Freeman? Typically during their junior year, either the fall or the spring. They can be advised at any time by our office. They do need to meet certain eligibility requirements for Freeman, that is completion of those lower division business core, the 2.5 Freeman GPA, and maintaining good status at the university. In general, our students apply about a year in advance. So we start talking to students now for next fall. It's okay for them to start coming to meet with us. And we've already got info sessions going. So we want them to start their application now. Parents and students have asked, what are those classes, the lower division business core? Here's a list of the classes. It looks really long, but in general, when students are in their sophomore year, they're finishing these, what we call 30-10 classes. I'm happy to announce that MCOM 3200 is no longer a 30-10, and so it's no longer required before students study abroad. In fact, they're encouraged to take it after they study abroad. Also, if a student is having difficulty completing all of their 30-10, sometimes when we have spring scholars or transfer students, they can wait and take one 30-10 after they study abroad. It just can't be in their major. And the reason we have this requirement in place is because they're taking upper level electives in these business areas. They can only take electives abroad. They can't take core courses. And so we want to make sure that they have the prerequisites in place to take those electives while they're abroad. And then when they come back, we don't want them to be scrambling to finish 30-10 and prereq requirements if they need to take upper level electives and core courses upon their return. They're only going to have 3 semesters left. We don't want them to have delayed graduation because they're still trying to get those out of the way. We do like to encourage students to consider studying abroad in the spring. Tulane is a bit of an anomaly that most of our students do study abroad in the fall. And, there's lots of reasons why. We hear, of course, Mardi Gras, but also sorority and fraternity obligations, as well as academic obligations, job interview obligations. So, every student has their own reasons, but spring study abroad can be a really great experience. A lot of our partner institutions have academic calendars that align better with the spring semester. For example, our partners in Belgium, Berlin, Austria, some of them even start after Mardi Gras, so some depending on the year and how Mardi Gras falls. So sometimes students can even stick around and then leave for their study abroad program. In general, course offerings can be more plentiful in the spring, particularly our partners like Copenhagen Business School and Vienna School of Economics and Business. And because we have fewer Tulane students applying, in general, our spring applicants have a higher likelihood of being accepted into their top choice. And we see less of that Tulane bubble when we have fewer Tulane students all going together. So there's more cultural immersion and more of an integrative experience. And more holidays, better weather in the spring. And then after the semester is over, a lot of times students can take advantage of that time to travel after the semester is over. All right, so how does the Freeman exchange process work? The number of spots that we're able to offer our outbound students is governed by how many students we're receiving from each partner institution. Students do maintain their Tulane status. They also become students at the partner institutions. They have to maintain that full-time status at the partner institution. This is an academic exchange. It's not a travel semester, so it's very important that they're focusing on their academics. The individual course enrollments are done at the host institution in their portal. Whatever the enrollment process is of the host institution, the students have to go by. And then the credits and grades are transferred in as business electives, and they count towards that BSM or Bachelor of Science in Management degree here at Tulane. Generally, we receive the transcripts, and then students receive those credits after we're able to apply them to the student's degree plan here at Tulane. In general, those are automatically transferred in as either general or major electives in their degree audit. So if you have not looked at your student's degree audit with the blocks, with the business electives, and then the majors with the major electives, you can ask them to take a look at that. it's very helpful to look at that sometimes. Non-business courses transfer generally automatically as general electives towards the graduation requirements. If there are specific departments that students want to get credit from outside of business, then they can reach out to that department to get those credits. NTC, Newcomb Tulane College, has core requirements. You might have heard of the textual and historical or aesthetic and creative arts requirements. Students can petition to get NTC core requirements satisfied by study abroad classes, and we usually can help them with where to start to submit that petition. In general, we want students to be meeting with their major and academic advisors as well as the study abroad advisors during the entire process. They're discussing their classes, how they're going to count towards their degree plan, what the do's and don'ts are, and that sort of thing. Grades from study abroad classes, and this is for OSA and Freeman programs. Those grades appear as letter grades on the students' transcripts, but they're not factored into the GPA. So if a student does well in their classes, you'll see all those good grades, but it won't change their GPA. If they don't do well, you'll see those grades and it won't change their GPA. So this allows for students to take sometimes challenging classes abroad, or they're dealing with a different academic culture where they don't know the professor's expectations. We do find that the academic cultural adjustment is often just as or more difficult than the general cultural adjustment that students have to do. So we don't want them to be worried about their grades when they study abroad. Now, about cost. Basically, students pay their base Tulane tuition plus the academic and study abroad fees. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at this slide. They also pay the $500 non-refundable commitment deposit that's required upon program commitment. As long as the student participates and shows up in country and we confirm that they're participating, they get that money credited back to their Gibson account during the study abroad semester. So it usually takes a couple of weeks or maybe a month into the semester for it to be credited back to their account. Scholarships and financial aid apply like they normally do. International health insurance and emergency service is included in the study abroad program. All other expenses are paid directly to providers like flights and housing and things like that. Cost of living can vary widely, and cost estimates are available on our website on each of the brochure pages. So if we look at, let's say, let's look at the ICADE page, and you can click on the costs here, and you can see the estimate and the breakdown right here on the website. It's a rough estimate. It's not perfect, but it's a pretty good guide. Now, about housing. In general, students are going to make their own housing arrangements locally. Each institution is going to have different facilities, different locations, or none. So for example, ICADE, our big partner in Madrid, there is no institutional housing, but there are recommendations on the housing tab for the ICADE students from prior students and for the students, and these are agencies that ICADE works with. So in general, students are arranging for their own housing, but we are trying to connect them with recommendations from prior students. Some of our partners do guarantee housing, like BI Norwegian, or some programs have great government-provided student housing, like our partner in Vienna. So it just really depends on which program the students end up on as to what kind of housing opportunities they have. And again, the local cost of living can really vary widely. And if a student is taking advantage of student housing, a lot of times it's subsidized. And so it's going to be much more affordable than if they choose to stay in independent housing. So in general, we recommend that students take advantage of whatever institutional housing might or might not be offered by the partners. So Starting fall 2025, so this semester, Tulane has this new housing requirement that juniors have to stay on campus as well. What this means is that if a student is not going abroad, they must live on campus for their junior year. If a student chooses to study abroad in the fall, they are released from the on-campus housing requirement, but they are not guaranteed a spot for the spring semester. So they can live on campus in the spring semester, and there's usually space, but they do have to apply for that housing for the spring. And, it can be difficult to find a subletter. If they decide to go abroad in the spring, they live on campus in the fall semester, but then they don't have to worry about subletting for the spring semester. So it's not a bad idea to think about, the benefits of staying on campus during the fall semester and studying abroad in the spring. But, some students don't want to do that, or some students maybe have already signed leases for their junior year. So we have seen sometimes students paying for housing in New Orleans as well as abroad for their fall semester. We hope that they're not doing that, but some students do. All right, so how do students apply? In their sophomore year, they start planning. They start with our website, the info sessions. They come and speak to us. They can speak to us on Zoom or in person. We're in the business building, Suite 220, and we encourage them to research those program offerings based on their personal goals and objectives. So we're really looking for students to do their homework on the Freeman partner institutions in order to be able to make informed choices as to which programs they want to request, those 5 programs, and in what order. We do require that they write up a little essay, a little 100-word essay on each one, showing us that they've done that research and that they can make that connection of the academic fit or the professional fit for them between, their goals and the institutional offerings. Our deadlines are the same every year: September 5th for the spring, February 5th for the fall. Summer is variable. In general, the timeline is that we offer placement decisions in about 2 weeks, 10 to 14 work days after that placement deadline. Students will then have 7 days to commit or decline, and they're encouraged to meet with us during that time period if they have questions. So a lot of times, the end of February is generally when our fall applicants are making their final decisions and their commitments, right? The late February. After that, then they do the next phases, which are the secondary application. We hold a pre-departure orientation, and then the students are working on their student visa applications, which is another sort of a big learning curve for students to handle after they've been accepted by the partner institution. In general, Freeman Abroad placement process is, a thing that we talk about a lot with students and parents, because we can't guarantee that we can place students where they want to go. If more students request placement at a certain institution than there are spots available, then we're going to students' second and third choices. Ranking and placement is based on their eligibility requirements and the quality of their application. So what is their Freeman GPA? How close are they to completing their lower division business core courses? And then what's the quality of that personal statement and those host university request list essays? So we've got the personal statement and the host university request list essays that we are the committee is reading and grading, basically, and we get a composite score, and then we rank the students. So the students who have, higher GPAs, closer to finishing those cores, and they submit well-written, thoughtful responses are going to be higher on the placement list. It is also important to know that host university request list acts as a default wait list if a student is not placed in their top choice program. So the students don't have to do anything extra if they don't get into their top choice. So if they get placed in their third choice and they go ahead and commit and everything, they're doing okay with that. But then a spot opens up at a program that's higher on their list. And if they're the next person on the wait list for that program, then we would offer them that spot and give them first right of refusal. So there's a lot of movement right during that end of February period where students are, making their final decisions, and then we're moving from one program to another sometimes. It's not a guarantee, but in general, we do honor the fact that students aren't necessarily always getting into their top choice. We encourage students to embrace the placement, even if they are not placed at their top choice. We partner with amazing institutions, and so even if your heart's set on a particular school, if you don't get into that program, you have probably gotten into an amazing business school that you are going to love, and you're going to meet some incredible people. So after placement, it's very exciting. Students commit to their programs. Once we have a group of students, then we nominate them to the host institution according to this institution schedule. And then students start their research on the specific program information, right? What kind of classes they think are going to be offered, what's the academic culture of that school, what kind of student groups they might want to participate in, what's the dress code of that school, what's the local language. We really want them to start thinking about what their experience is going to be like. We also encourage them to get in touch with prior study abroad participants and or incoming exchange students from the location. We give them access to an Excel spreadsheet in their application with prior students' information so that they can contact other students who've already done the programs. It is important that students have a valid passport. It has to be valid for at least 6 months after the study abroad program ends. So if a student is going abroad in fall 2026, that's going to end in probably December, then they should have a passport with the expiration date no earlier than June of 2027. So if they have a passport with an expiration date of, say, March 2027, they should get a new passport. Some countries will not issue student visas if they don't see that 6-month expiration date. So it's important for students to know this. We bring this up at all the info sessions. They need to be checking their passport, especially that expiration date. We also suggest that they go ahead and renew their passports now. And if it was a juvenile passport prior to the age of 16, it's not a renewal. It's actually an application for a new passport, and they'll get the 10-year passport. But it can sometimes take a little longer than a renewal. So it's important that they start that process as soon as possible if they don't have a current passport. Most countries do require the students apply for a student visa. Some do not. Requirements vary widely depending on the country and can vary depending on the consulate. So, for example, the Italian consulate in Miami might have slightly different requirements from the Italian consulate in Houston or Chicago. In general, the requirements are very detailed, and students have to really read those instructions very carefully. It's like learning a new language. We really try to encourage students to read that information 2 and 3 times when they're looking at all of the requirements, because it's a lot to take in. Freeman does provide optional batch visa processing for our students going to Spain. We send the information to BLS International Houston. We did see some students with difficulties applying through BLS Houston in 2024, so we've resumed that batch visa processing. There's no additional fee for this service. And, so we encourage students to take advantage of the assistance that we offer, but it's totally optional. Pro tip, if your student is thinking of applying for Spain, they are going to have to show 3 months of a stable bank account balance over about $3,200 in order to apply without parent sponsorship. So if your student is really hoping for Spain, it might be a good idea to make sure that they have a checking or savings account with over that amount for a period of time where you could show 3 successive months of that balance as the beginning and ending balance ahead of time. Otherwise, they show parental sponsorship with notarized letter of support, notarized parent bank statements, and copies of birth certificate, as well as copies of parent passports. So the documentation required to show parental support for the Spanish visa application is pretty involved. So I like to mention that little pro tip ahead of time. In terms of booking travel, Tulane students are required to utilize the central booking with Tulane. In general, Tulane found out, the hard way during COVID that they really need to make sure that they are providing more support to students in case of emergencies. And so they are requiring that all Tulane travelers utilize either the electronic Concur booking service or World Travel Services, which is the travel agency. They can, if they have questions, they can email travel@tulane.edu. And the travel management office is very helpful for students. In general, we try to make sure that students are exercising personal safety and keeping in mind safety issues. We want them to check the U.S. Department of State and CDC websites for travel advisories. Most of the locations that we send students to, safety is really not a huge concern, but personal safety is always very, very important. Tulane does monitor advisories, and we do reserve the right to cancel a program at any time in a location that's considered unsafe, including during the program administration. We do provide international health insurance included in the program, as well as Crisis 24 international safety and emergency provider services while students are abroad. And so that's all included in the program. That Crisis 24 support is very important. We encourage them to enroll in the STEP program with the Department of State. The Crisis 24 app is something that we do expect all students to download on their phones. And it provides that easy button press that you see there on your screen for students to get help immediately. And that's help with a crisis, but it's also help with arranging for medical help, even a doctor's visit, you name it. All right, so that's basically it. I believe that I'm just in time. We thank you for attending. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation and feel more knowledgeable about the programs and also how to help your student embrace that growth mindset. We want them to take ownership. We want to empower our students, and we want to work with families to provide these experiences so our students can become responsible adults and wonderful global citizens in the future. So that's it for my presentation.
Okay. Thanks so much, Mary. So we have just a couple of minutes to take a few questions, and we already have a couple that have been submitted. So I will pose those to Mary. So could you please clarify the $500 commitment is paid before the students knows what choice 1 through 5 they are offered, or
No,
after?
after,
Okay.
in order to commit.
Okay. Um, please explain the tuition fees. Are we paying Tulane based and paying the institution abroad?
No,
No.
just Tulane tuition.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm trying to find the slides, but
Okay. Um, so this program seems complicated and a lot of work for students and Freeman staff. Since all credits only count as electives and grades don't count, can you explain the complexity or that kind of rationale behind that?
Yeah, sure. So the students are required to get, so Freeman students are required to get up to 12 credits of general business electives, plus 9 credits usually of major electives. So that's, well over a full semester's worth of elective credits that they need to get for the degree. So those can be fulfilled on campus or they can be fulfilled through study abroad. And so the idea with the exchange programs is that they're taking these electives to sort of broaden their business degree. Um, yeah, so and they don't lose progress when they are pursuing these electives because they're going through programs where they can get enough business classes to fulfill those electives. I hope that answers that question.
So another question is, do all students get a spot in one of their top 5 options, or are there situations where a student may not get a spot anywhere?
It is possible that if a student is putting all their eggs into like 2 or 3 program baskets, then, or they're putting an application in for 1 program or 2 programs, that we might not be able to offer placement. In general, if students are able to be flexible, then we can try to offer them a spot. We can't guarantee anything because it really depends upon what programs the students put, which programs other students are applying for, because this is all relative to the applicant pool. And so there have been cases, especially last year with the increased number of applications due to this new housing requirement, that we weren't able to offer students a place. Every year we do a second round where we offer students spots at universities where we have spaces available. So we were able to place the majority of our students in something. But that's why we started to pre-approve OSA programs so that students have additional options outside of the Freeman programs.
Um, so could you remind everybody the 3 things required for students outside the program? Housing, visa, and what was the third thing?
3 things outside of the program. Can you elaborate a little bit?
We might need that person to submit a clarification about that. Um, so one question was, can you clarify the 3-month bank account balance for Spain? Is it 3 months prior to application, that
So, okay,
February 5th date?
no, it's not. That's a pro tip for the visa application. So if a student is placed in a program to Spain and they're going to be applying for their student visa, the documents required for that student visa application for Spain is going to require that they show that they have the financial wherewithal to stay in Spain. The way that they require that is either a bank account in the student's name or sponsorship from the parents' bank account. What the student would have to show is 3 months prior to the visa application. So generally the students submitting that in like April. So they would have to show March, February, and January bank statements with a beginning and ending balance of at least $3,200. It has to be checking or savings. It can't be an investment account. It has to have, starting and ending balance of a minimum of that amount. That's roughly the amount that they need to show. And that's so that they don't have to show parent sponsorship. So I have been told from prior parents, prior year parents, that it would have been helpful for them to know this because ahead of time, because if you have the money but the student doesn't have that in their bank account, if you can set them up ahead of time to be able to show this money, then they don't have to provide all the documentation with all the notarized documents from the parents. Because if you're showing parent sponsorship, you need the parents' bank statements, a notarized letter from the parents, a copy of the birth certificate, and copies of this parent's IDs or passports. So the documentation required is much less if the student can show that they have a bank account in their name with this minimum. But that's not until they're placed in a program in Spain and applying for a visa for Spain.
So another question, speaking of Spain, if
Yeah.
someone is a Spanish major or minor, does
Mhm.
that help them get into the Spanish program?
In general, yes, because it's a more kind of like concrete academic fit. So the student can use that in their argument for why a program in Spain or in Latin America would be a better academic fit for them.
Okay.
But it's not a
One-
guarantee. We
Okay.
make no guarantees.
Okay. One question is, can you please tell us what happens if the student is going to a country that is currently under the U.S. Department of State advisory? For example, Colombia is now level 3, which is reconsider travel.
Yeah. So Colombia is a special case, and it is probably the one country where we have a program that is on that list. Tulane looks at the that travel advisory on a regional basis, and Bogota generally is okay for travel. And so Tulane has approved students to study abroad in Bogota. But they do want to make sure that students know that they should not be traveling to the regions within Colombia that are more dangerous. And so the travel advisory office at Tulane often will coach students if they need help on, if they're going to be doing side trips outside of Bogota within Colombia.
Okay, so here was the clarification for that question we were considering earlier. The students are responsible for which things outside of their program fees? Their housing, their visa,
Oh.
their travel. Was it anything else?
Um, uh, yes, like classroom materials. So basically, let me go to the cost page again. So we're going to go back to the ICADE program page. And we provide this kind of breakdown. So it shows what they pay to Tulane and then the estimate of costs outside of that. So you're looking at food, housing, transportation, um, passport, personal expenses. Some of our programs do require that students get domestic insurance, for example, Switzerland, Australia. So that would be there if they were going to one of those countries. Estimated textbook, airfare, and visa costs. And then students can edit these fields. They can actually plug in if they've got financial aid. So if they had like a $10,000 scholarship, they can actually plug that into this little thing. And it gives them an estimate of the cost of attendance.
Okay.
And of course, weekend travel, personal habits, shopping, things like that, of course, are going to be payable by the student.
So it is past 7, so I'm going to ask one last question, and I think some of these questions could be answered once everybody gets the slides and the presentation I'll provide, because you'll be able to click through the slides to more detail on the websites and things like that, or
Hmm.
just kind of review things. But so one question that several people have submitted is whether or not students can apply to both a Freeman program and an OSA program at the same time, and
Hmm.
do they receive their answers about whether they've been accepted, at roughly the same time so they can make a choice between the two?
Hmm. Yeah, so the short answer is yes. They can. They have Freeman students have the prerogative to do that. Students outside of the B school don't have that option. So it's nice that Freeman students can do that. Um, so they can apply for Freeman Abroad as well as an OSA program. They just have to keep track of the different systems, the different requirements. Also, when you're applying for Freeman, you're applying for these 5 schools, whereas with OSA, they're applying for one program with a backup. And so they're going to need to get advising from both offices. So, yeah, a lot of students are looking at, you know, applying for both so that they have backup options. The deadlines for both are the same this year. They're February 5th, 2026 for both programs. So we anticipate that it will take about the same amount of time for us to offer placement to students. So hopefully they'll be making that decision with, they'll be making an informed decision at that point.
Okay.
We
Oh,
did learn recently, sorry, but we did learn recently that OSA is not going to do wait lists for their programs. So unlike how we do wait lists, they won't do wait lists for their program. So if a student doesn't get into their first choice program with OSA on the first round, they probably will not get into that program.
so Mary, before we close, I don't remember if this was on your last slide, but could you tell everybody just your website again in case we,
Yeah.
before I can send them those resources, they might want to look over this tonight or sometime before I can get this to everybody. And so folks, it'll probably be,
Mhm. It's
we can
Freeman
see there,
Abroad, all one word.
freemanabroad.tulane.edu.
Tulane.edu.
And so give us a couple of days and then we'll send this to you. And
This
it'll
is what it
also be
looks like.
archived on the Family Programs website. So at this point, we really do appreciate your staying with us this evening and appreciate your interest in this. And we will, and I guess, I think, Mary, what would you recommend if they still have questions after reviewing everything and the website once this is finished?
Well, they can
They have
certainly
their
reach.
student
Yeah,
come in to ask questions or?
yeah, they can. So parents can reach out to our office directly. We do prefer to work with students and parents. And so if a student makes an appointment with us, they can invite the parent to attend. Um, but also, parents can call if they have a quick question. Um, and if you click this appointments block, that gives you lots of information on how to get in touch with us, including our direct phone numbers and direct Calendly links, as well as like most first available appointments for students. So yeah, we're open to receiving communications from parents, and we try to do our best to keep information as open as possible. And we recognize that it is complicated. This is a big endeavor for students. It's overwhelming for them, and so we welcome any support that families can provide for students in addition to our office.
So folks, if you have questions or feedback in general about the webinar, then you're welcome to email those to me at families@tulane.edu. And if there's something that's more specific, then I'll forward that on to Mary and her staff. But we appreciate feedback and compliments as well as suggestions for improvements that what you're seeing now could have been from suggestions that we got from parents years ago. So we're really grateful for that input. And then I will tell you that we also provide webinars later in the spring that are pre-departure information. And then we just last year started doing a re-entry webinar to help parents understand the students' transition back to the States and some of the dynamics of that, both some of the challenges that they may face in sort of reintegrating into the US and back onto campus and being part of the university community again, but then also some of the opportunities that they can maximize for their career development and their academic exploration once they've had that wonderful experience behind them and how it might affect their goals in the future. So we invite you to kind of watch for those. So those will always be announced in the family newsletter and on the list of upcoming webinars that are on the website. So I'll close now and thank everybody again and thank Mary and also Aaron for
Thank you,
being
Penny.
with us tonight. And
Appreciate
thanks
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night.